Hey guys, today we're actually going to take three chapters because I really want to get done with Genesis by the end of the year. Going to read through the Bible next year, or at least through the New Testament, maybe through the whole Bible. And so, in order to do that, we needed to take a couple of chapters together here. And so, we're in Genesis 44 through 46 today. Genesis 44 starts with Joseph putting his brothers to one final test. This whole time, I think Joseph's been wondering. Have his brothers changed at all? You remember his brothers because of their jealousy, their envy, because of his dad's relationship with him, because of the coat that his father gave him, because of the dreams that he told where his family was bowing down to him. They were the reason that he is now in Egypt, right? They were going to kill him, and then they decided not to, and then they sold him into slavery, who got taken into Egypt as a result of all of this, all because of their jealousy and envy. And so Joseph wants to test them again. And so again, they've come back. They've brought Benjamin back with them. They have bought some food, and now they are going to go back. And before they do, Joseph tells his steward, I want you to put all of the money they brought, I want you to put it back in their bags like he did the first time. But then he also said, put his silver cup, the one that is used for different things, I want you to put it in the top of the youngest one's bag along with his silver. So he did just as Joseph said. And then in the morning, as they went off, he told his steward, he said, go overtake them and then tell them that one of them has stolen my cup. And why would they do this to me? Why in the world would they after I've treated them this way, why in the world would we do all of this? And they're like, hey, we haven't done that. We haven't done anything like that. Why would you even accuse us of doing something like that is that big of a deal, right? We would never do something like that. And so they open their sacks up, and sure enough, in Benjamin's bag, they find the cup there. And I think you ask yourself, why did Joseph do this? Well, I think the reason Joseph did this is because he wanted to know, were they going to abandon their brother again? I think he wanted to know whether or not they were really changed. I think he wanted to give them an opportunity to redo what they did wrong with Joseph. I think he wanted to give them an opportunity to make up for what happened with him. And I think he's asking the question, have they really changed, or are they going to abandon their brother again? I think that's the reason that Joseph does this. And then as they find the cup in Benjamin's bag, what ends up happening is Judah comes to Joseph and says, what can we say? How can we plead? How can we justify ourselves? God's exposed our iniquity. We are now your slaves, both we and the one in whose possession it was found. And so again, Judah saying, hey, we'll all come and do this, right? Because they obviously have changed. They now have this care and compassion and concern for their brothers. But not only that, after Joseph said, no, only the one that did it, Benjamin, will be my slave. Everybody else can go in peace. And then Judah comes back to him and basically says, hey, we can't go back to my dad without Benjamin, because if we do, he said he's going to die. We can't go back without him. I care too much about my dad. I care too much about Benjamin. I care too much about all these things. We cannot go back without them. And one of the things we see from Judah's reaction here is we see that Judah specifically and the brothers are changed men. They now have care and compassion for their father. They now have care and compassion for their brothers. They have changed throughout this scenario. And that's what Joseph wanted to see. And so after he sees that they definitely have changed, they are different, Joseph gets emotional and he ends up revealing himself to his brothers. And he makes a statement to them in Genesis 45 that is so important. He says, therefore, he's telling them not to be grieved or not to be worried. He said, therefore, it was not you who sent me here, but God. You see, Joseph understands that God is always working behind the scenes, that God is sovereign, that God is in control, that God's purpose is going to be fulfilled through and in spite of the actions and freedoms of human beings. But it's going to happen in his way and in his timing. Joseph understands that God worked through the evil actions of his brother to fulfill his promises in their lives. And we have to trust that God does the same thing for us, that he's in control, that he's sovereign, that he is over all of this. And therefore, we can be a people who have faith and trust in him. And then Genesis 46, God tells Jacob it's okay for their family to go down to Egypt and that he was going to make them a great nation there, that he's going to go down with them and he's going to also bring them back. And so we see, even though God's promise was, I want to bring you to this land and I want to keep you there, he's going to take them to another land. But his promise doesn't go away because he says, going there, I will be with you. You see the difference between Jacob and when people have, Abraham specifically, went down to Egypt in the past, was that this time Jacob got assurance from God that it was okay. This time, Jacob understood that God's presence was going to go with him even if they went down to Egypt. When Abraham went to Egypt, he did so out of fear because he didn't trust and have faith in God. And so he walked out of the presence of God into Egypt without God's permission or without God telling him to. And so we see that Jacob has become a changed man. He listens to God. He goes where the presence of God is. He doesn't do anything because of fear. He does everything because of obedience and faith and trust in God and God's promises. So we see a father who has been changed. We see brothers who have been changed, who are significantly different now. And we see Joseph who has changed, no longer angry, no longer resentful, now full of understanding that God has worked through this entire situation. And God's promises has been fulfilled through this situation. And God has been working on his behalf behind the scenes always. God is sovereign. God is trustworthy. God is in control. And we can trust and have faith in that. We'll see you next week for Genesis 47.